Hey, it's Raina, and today we're going to talk about my experiences modeling underwater. I've been modeling professionally since 2004. I was a bit skinnier back then. I did a lot of photo work for galleries, books, and portfolios, a little commercial work, and modeling for life drawing and art programs. Now, most of the modeling I do is for my mermaid company. I also do photography for just as long, and do underwater photos and videos for my team. Modeling underwater is a totally different experience for both model and photographer. It's one of the hardest ways to model, and made more so by a mermaid tail. Photos and video can often make this look effortless, but in reality it takes a lot of work and risk. I'm going to break this video into 3 sections: prep, safety, and technique. Under technique, we're going to talk about some of the common struggles too and how to address them. Prep. Before you do any modeling underwater, you want to be prepared. Make sure you're well rested, as even holding yourself underwater in shallow water is taxing on your body. To avoid getting muscle cramps, make sure you're hydrated and have eaten enough. Make sure your makeup and hair are waterproof so that neither run or bleed into the water. For makeup, my go-to underwater brand is Makeup Forever's Aqualine. I dye my hair, which means the red can bleed in the water, tinging it. I avoid this by tucking it up under a swim cap and wearing a lace front wig instead. For your own comfort, you may want earplugs. There are clear earplugs that can be easily edited out of shots if they show up. Similarly, there are a few options for nose plugs too. Nose plugs are good for action shots, like flips. Many people are really buoyant underwater, and if you're using a tail, chances are you're going to float a bit. Floating can make it hard to get a shot, so many models, with proper safety precaution, use weights. There are many weights to choose from, and ways to hide them in your costume or your outfit. We'll go over those in the technique and safety section. Even in a shallow pool, it's important to have floaties on hand in case you get tired and need some help. Fatigue can hit you out of nowhere. If you're in a sunny environment, remember to have some water-safe sunscreen. Regardless of how warm it is, make sure you have something warm to wrap yourself up in. You can get cold quickly in water, even warm water. Finally, bring a few masks and snorkels too. Pick up some eye gel if you're concerned about burning red eyes. Safety. Safety is the most important thing when you're modeling underwater. Anyone can have a shallow water blackout. They're called shallow water blackouts because they happen in shallow water, even a bathtub if you're holding your breath. You don't have to be holding your breath for a super long time to pass out either. There are usually no signs before someone blacks out. You could also experience a loss of motor control, which can lead to drowning. It's when your body simply stops working while in the water. Hyperventilating can increase the risk of these things happening, so can cold exposure. Be sure to breathe normally, take breaks, keep warm, and stay calm. There should always be someone with you whose only job is to watch you the entire time you're underwater. That person should be trained in first aid and CPR. We call them a spotter. It also helps if the spotter has a flotation device. Nervous about finding someone to trust with your life? Lifeguards can be rented by the hour pretty cheaply. Ideally, it would be fantastic to have a freediver or a rescue scuba diver on hand, but in many areas they aren't readily available. A lifeguard is still great, and if there is minimal risk, a spotter with CPR will do. This spotter watches you the entire time you're underwater and checks on you every single time you come up for air to remind you to breathe and check you for signs of distress. They should wear a mask and snorkel so they can put their head underwater and watch you. They should be independent from the photographer and not the photographer's assistant. You don't want them being distracted. They've got a very important job. One time while I was performing, I experienced a loss of motor control due to fatigue, hyperventilating, and cold temperatures. My lifeguard saw the signs and thankfully pulled me out before I passed out. Thanks, lifeguard Kate. When holding your breath for a shot, remember your safety is more important than the shot. If you begin to feel uncomfortable or experience dizziness, lightheadedness, or body spasms, come up for air. Never go deeper than your swimming ability will allow you. Be sure to remain calm while you're in the water. If you require the use of weights, there are several different ones to choose from. Weight belts are great for hiding undergarments and can be customized to your specific need. You can rent them really cheap. A weight belt has an emergency release so that you or your spotter can unclip it quickly in an emergency. If you're using free weights that are hard or soft, make sure you practice ditching them and take time to make sure you're weighted correctly. Being weighted doesn't mean you sink to the bottom. Hypothermia can be a real problem, even in the warm water, because of how our body distributes heat while submerged. Pay attention to your body signs. Take breaks. Holding your breath can cause a euphoria like a runner's high. You may not know that your body is in distress if you don't take breaks. Remember to keep electrical equipment, like lights, away from the water and grounded. Having a light fall into a pool or tub can actually electrocute you. If red, burny, itchy eyes are a concern, pick up eye gel from your local drugstore. Put some in before you go in the water, during breaks, and while underwater. It's a gel, not a drop. It will blur your vision, but your vision will be blurred anyway. It'll allow you to open your eyes comfortably, even in chlorine, and ward off those symptoms. Eardrops are also really good for preventing ear infections. Know your environment. Even if it's a pool, lake, or tub you've been in before, it's going to be different when you can't see well and are weighted down by garments or tail or weights. Check it out first with goggles. Practice some of your poses to get a sense of your space that you're going to need. Be careful when doing flips in pools. You'd be surprised how often models bang their head off the tub faucet, swim right into a wall or the pool bottom, or wind up in gross underwater plants because they don't have a sense of where things are. Don't go too deep. If you have no training, our lungs shrink as we go down and expand as we come up. If you don't have depth experience with breath holding and equalizing, you can seriously harm yourself. You don't need to be super deep to get great shots or footage. No shot is worth risking your life. Take things slow. Get comfortable. Be aware of nature. If you're out in it, leeches, jellyfish, sharp rocks, snapping turtles, eels, all things I've encountered. Finally, if underwater modeling is something you want to do a lot of, consider getting level 1 freediving training. This training teaches you how to safely hold your breath, build up your endurance, and learn how to rescue someone who goes unconscious in the water. It's an invaluable skill that could one day save your life, and it will seriously improve your underwater modeling game too. Technique. Underwater modeling is so much harder than people realize. You're all prepared, you're nice and safe, and now it's time to model, and it's hard. Learning to sink properly and manage your buoyancy will take some practice first. This is different for everyone. For me, I usually find it easier to do a duck dive and swim down than pose while I float up. I usually find I need to let out some air, but just remember you're losing how long you can stay under when you do that. Another way people sink is by going straight down. You can usually achieve this by raising the roof with your arms, and you also may need to let out some air. Some people just sink with no issue, or they use weights and sink with no issue. You may need to start equalizing your ears right away as you go down into your pose. It's better to equalize your ears before you feel pain. If you're diving down for a pose in front of a backdrop, make sure you're far enough out from the backdrop that you don't knock it out of place. This is easier said than done and may require some practice with goggles. Once you're underwater, there are a few trip-ups many mermaids and models do that can ruin a shot. The first is puffing up your cheeks. You'd be surprised how strong that impulse is. Keeping your face relaxed is so tricky underwater. The next is having too many bubbles in front of your face. Photographers can edit some out, but sometimes a bubble can ruin an otherwise perfect shot. Avoid this by exhaling a little through your nose as you're going down. This will push the air out of your nose that would just pop out later, and it will create a nice seal so you don't get water up there. Pushing your tongue up against your soft palate will also help keep the water out of your nose. If you need to exhale to do so, sinking, do it when you're going down into your pose. Try to avoid doing it while you're in your pose unless you're trying to do something intentional with the bubbles. Hair and garments can be so tricky underwater. The first thing I do when I get into my pose is push my hair out of my face, and if I'm using a garment, make sure the air is out of it and floating the way I'd like. You may need an assistant to help with this who can go down with you and quickly adjust, then move. Using some well-hidden bobby pins or hair ties can help keep the hair out of your face. I usually use lace front wigs that don't have bangs, as the lace front helps keep the hair out of my face. Speaking of hair ties, one of the bad habits most women have is wearing one on their wrist when they model underwater. It's this crazy phenomenon that happens because we usually keep our hair back until we go underwater and don't really think about it. Light works differently underwater. You can't see very well, and it's really hard to know how your angles work underwater. It's not like you can stand in front of a mirror and practice with different light sources. Give your photographer lots of angles to work with. You may have underwater lights, above studio lights, pool lights, or just natural light. Your photographer isn't able to micromanage light and settings the way that they can on land. Try to avoid moving too close to lights to avoid overexposure. Ask your photographer to point you in the direction of the light and where it will be coming. Light the short side to avoid blowing out your face. If you're in a natural setting, kicking up sediment can be a real problem. If you're too close to the bottom, you'll cloud the water. It makes the shot look fuzzy and less clear. Remember, it's okay to start a pose over. If you go down and mess it up, just come back up and take a breather. You need to take breaks anyway. Billowing fabric can look stunning underwater, but it can also make you look bloated and unshapely if it's just around. Experiment with movement of your body and the garment. Lighter fabrics will take longer to sink and be harder to wrangle, but give you more time to work with. Heavier fabrics can make you sink, but they can take shorter time to work with. Bright colors work best. Just like on land, you can use pins and clips to shape your garment to fit it the way you need. Hanging onto something can give you a bit more time underwater to get the right pose and also conserve your energy. In a natural setting, you might enjoy gripping onto rocks. In a pool, you can hold yourself down by the ladder and let go when you're ready for the shot. Another trick is to keep a weight like a kettlebell at the bottom of a pool and then let it go when you're ready to float up for your shot. Great poses can come from movements and flips. I often find some of my best shots come from swimming into them, by doing a flip or a roll. Just make sure you're comfortable and have enough space. Cold water will be clearer than warmer water. I always get better shots in cold, but you need to take breaks to stay warm. If you're in a small confined space like a tub or a tank or a small pool, avoid any lotions that would cloud the water. Same with glitter. Glitter underwater and in your eyes hurts. If you've got bare feet, point your toes. 99% of the time in an underwater photo, pointed toes look better. It helps you look graceful. Keep your hands in soft poses and stick out your neck. An elongated neck looks amazing underwater and helps give more shape. Be sure to take breaks and ask your photographer to show you the images. It'll help you both rest and restore your body and give you an idea of what's working and what's not. Even the most talented underwater photographers are going to have a low ratio of usable photos to terrible ones. It's common for shots to turn out blurry because it's so hard for the photographer to tell while underwater. So be patient, keep at it, have accurate expectations. Avoid wiping your face when you come up for air. You'll smudge your makeup even if it is waterproof. There are a few classic poses I love that work well even for beginners. Looking up into the light always gives an ethereal feel to photos. Dancing poses always look great, especially with nice fabrics and garments. If modeling with the mermaid tail, try to avoid having the fluke in a profile style pose. You can't tell it's a tail that way. Angle your pose so the fluke can be seen. Coming right up to the surface but not breaking it makes for a stunning photo. When getting a shot by swimming or flipping into it, remember to stop blowing bubbles and move your hair. You can get amazing shots this way. Posing with a friend or partner is always fun. It helps you relax and gives you someone to play off of. Make the bubbles work for you. And your face doesn't always need to be in a shot. Underwater really lets you play with this. I hope you found this video helpful. If you like it, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and share this video with others. Best fishes!